Breaking news. Several senators have expressed a desire for the United States and NATO to get into a war if Russia uses nuclear weapons against Ukraine. Two senators are advocating for a military response from the United States and NATO if Russia attacks or destroys a nuclear facility in Ukraine. On Thursday, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut introduced a resolution that would classify a nuclear attack on Ukraine by Russia as an attack on NATO. Graham wrote on Twitter that a nuclear attack on Ukraine or the destruction of a nuclear facility in Russia would result in significant harm to human life in NATO countries because of radioactive materials. It would require an immediate response, according to Graham, such as invoking Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, which states that a military attack on one member state is an attack on the entire alliance. The threat of a use of a nuclear device by Russia is real, Graham was quoted as saying by WFLA. Graham continued, referring to Russian President Vladimir Putin, "If you use a nuclear weapon as an effort to turn around this war, you're not going to turn around the war in Ukraine, you're going to get into a war with NATO." Blumenthal argued that their resolution merely illustrates the risk Putin and his Russian forces would face if they used nuclear weapons on the battlefield and would not lead to U.S. involvement in the ongoing Ukraine-Russia conflict. "If they are so stupid as to use tactical nuclear weapons that endanger the world, NATO forces will destroy them completely," Blumenthal said. Graham urged his fellow legislators to vote in favor of the resolution, if they want to avoid a war between Russia and NATO. The resolution was prompted by Russia's decision to station its tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, a close ally and neighbor. Midway through June, President Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus announced that his country had begun receiving Russian tactical nuclear weapons, which he claimed were 3 times more powerful than the atomic bombs dropped by the United States on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. If he believes Belarus is under attack from the West, Lukashenko has not ruled out using Russian nuclear weapons. Concerned by Russia's action, Vice President Joe Biden warned a California donor group last week that Vladimir Putin's threat to use tactical nuclear weapons is real. Meanwhile, Russia has made veiled threats about employing nuclear weapons in self-defense. Maria Zakharova, a spokesperson for Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, insisted that Moscow's policy on nuclear weapons is strictly defensive and clearly limited by extraordinary circumstances. Russia does not seek a nuclear war, according to Zakharova's statements. If Russia uses nuclear weapons against Ukraine, Senators Graham and Blumenthal want that to be counted as an attack on NATO. If Putin uses nuclear weapons in Ukraine, Graham said, NATO will go to war with you. Blumenthal assured the Senate that the resolution would not lead to direct military involvement by the United States. As Russia's attack on Ukraine persists, U.S. Senators Lindsey Graham, RSC, and Richard Blumenthal, DCT, travel to Kyiv, Ukraine to view an exhibition of damaged Russian military hardware.